Thank you very much indeed, Katrina. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. I'm sorry I was just a little bit latchy in getting in. I was speaking to the law staff immediately before coming in because today is the day when the REF, the Research Excellence Framework results were released, and I'd scheduled a half-hour meeting to give myself plenty of time to get ready to come in here, to be in here in good time. But of course, the meeting overran because people had questions that they wanted to raise. So I'm sorry that I was just a little bit, as I say, a little bit latchy. It's a great pleasure to be able to speak to the alumni community. I think it's something that we should probably do more of, and I'm certainly hoping to do on a more regular basis going forward, and certainly hoping to be able to do face to face. That is something that should become easier, one trusts, in the not too distant future. So looking forward to speaking to alumni in Aberdeen and other locations. What I want to do today is just share a little bit about what the school has been up to in the recent past and what its plans are going forward. I think we indicated that this was going to be look towards the university's 2040 vision as well. So I'll make sure that I speak to that in particular. I haven't prepared slides because I wanted to have maybe just a slightly less formal conversation, but what I am going to do, just as we begin, assuming that that the technology does not defeat me, what I am going to do is share just a little bit of data that I have from that I got recently through the planning round that we went through. I think it's just it gives an interesting sort of snapshot of where we are as a school. So let's see if I can get that shared. So that should be working now. So what that should be showing you is Guardian University subject quartile rankings. Can somebody just speak, Katharina? Can you just speak and say if you can see that?
Yeah, we can see that. Great. Thanks, Greg.
That's great. So this is part of the kind of the data files that all the schools get when we're going through our planning process with the senior management team. And this gives just quite a good flavour of where the school is and what we've been up to in the recent past. So the school has been highly ranked within the UK law schools over the last 5 years or so. We've been consistently top 20, frequently top 10. At the moment, we're 12th in the Guardian rank, and by other ranks, 11th and 15th. So we're well established in that top quartile of UK law schools. Relatively recently, we broke into the top 100 of law schools worldwide, which was a significant achievement. We're currently 99th, so just hanging on to that top 100 rating. But that's just a little something in relation to overall ranking. Course satisfaction. This is taken from the National Student Survey, and what you can see there is always in the top quartile over the last few years. And last year we had what I thought was a wonderfully strong achievement. We were second in student satisfaction in the national student survey. A terrific achievement, I thought, during a COVID affected year, to have such high levels of satisfaction. If we just move over a little bit, we can see that the value added by a University of Aberdeen law degree, again, is always is always very high. But this one here, where we perform much more badly, is something that I want to talk about because I think it's really important. This is the staff-student ratio rank. And what this means is, in effect, all of what we're achieving here in terms of student satisfaction, the adding of value, our ranking as a law school, all of that is being achieved in circumstances when our staff-student ratio is higher than the overwhelming majority of our competitors. In other words, we've got more students and fewer staff, and we're still managing to achieve that. What I have indicated recently to senior management, and I'm pleased to say that senior management has been very receptive to this idea, is that this is not actually a sustainable situation, and that there needs to be investment going forward to really set the school on a sustainable footing. And so we've been in the very exciting position over the last couple of years of being able to grow the school and to make quite a lot of appointments. Right, I'm now going to try and stop sharing. Fine, so we should now be back. That's served its purpose. We should now be back to being able to see me on the screen again. So that investment that we've secured from the institution is incredibly valuable. What that will allow us to do is to make sure that our programs remain relevant, that our standards of teaching remain high, that we're able to give the students the attention that they deserve. So we have employed, and over the current calendar year, we will be joined by an additional 12 members of staff across a really broad range of areas. A particular focus on international law, international criminal and humanitarian law being two of the areas where we've recruited. We've recruited in the field of space law. Some people here may have been taught by Frank Lyle, who of course was one of the leading experts in space law in the UK for many years. When Frank retired around 12 years ago, no immediate decision was made to replace him with another space lawyer, not least of all because Frank was quite a broadly based member of staff and obviously highly competent in public law as well. So he was replaced as a public lawyer, but not as a space lawyer. I always felt that was a bit of a mistake, and that far from being a niche area, this was a really important area, and one where the school could really take a kind of a leadership role and move forward. So I'm really pleased to say that among this crop of a dozen appointments that have been made, we're reintroducing a space lawyer, so that will be coming back into our programs. We're also consolidating our strength in the field of energy and environmental law with 2 appointments there, and we have appointments in the space of private international law and commercial law, with colleagues who have an interest in corporate governance and maritime law coming to join us as well. And all of this takes place against the context of a further expansion that happened, or an earlier expansion that happened last year, when we appointed 7 additional staff, again with quite a broad focus, a focus in particular on commercial and private law at that particular time, and also a constitutional lawyer. One of the commercial lawyers, or in fact, sorry, 2 of the commercial lawyers were particularly interested also in data, analytics and technology. So what we're always trying to do is to make sure that our course offerings are being kept up to date, so that we can give our students the most stimulating and relevant experience, and also so that our research profile can remain highly relevant. I spoke a little bit about the fact that I'd come kind of hot foot, or whatever the virtual equivalent of hot foot is, from a meeting to discuss the REF. So just briefly on that, the RAF results are out today. The school has improved its position. So we have so we're in the top half of research active schools in the UK. So we're 32nd on GPA, grade point average, as opposed to 35th in the last cycle. There's room for improvement there, although it is a step in the right direction. But where we have shown significant improvement is in the field of impact, and so our research is our strategy of having research that has a real world connection, real world relevance, is really starting to pay off. And we had impact case studies that were related to private international law, international waters law, energy and environmental law, a really broad range of impact case studies where we were able to demonstrate that research by colleagues within the law school was having a really material impact upon law and policy throughout those areas, and that's fundamental to our research strategy. Turning now to talk a little bit about the university 2040 plans, there are two things in particular that I really want to pick out and talk about specifically, because they're things that are really fundamental to the law school's planning and vision. The first is equality and diversity and inclusion, and we've done quite a lot of really interesting work there, and it's an area where alumni have helped. I'll tell a little story about that, and where I hope alumni might be able to help again. And we'll also talk. I'll also talk about interdisciplinarity, interdisciplinary research, and interdisciplinary teaching, which is something that is not necessarily the first thing people think about when they think about a law school, but which I think provides us with wonderful opportunities going forward. So dealing firstly with equality, diversity and inclusion. The Black Lives Matter campaign has really caused the university sector to focus on equality, diversity and inclusion even more intensely than it had in the past. These were always important issues, but there's no doubt that the Black Lives Matter campaign has brought a new focus on this. In the past, EDI was largely focused upon gender issues in the sector. The Athena Swan programme had been very valuable and very important, but had tended to skew the institutional focus a little bit towards gender. Gender remains important, and we're going forward with our with the renewal of our Athena Swan application over this summer. But a broader focus on equality and diversity was certainly needed. So we've set up an equality and diversity committee, appointed an equality and diversity champion, and started a range of activities there. The main thing that we're trying to do at this stage is to give, and I'm going to focus in particular on how we deal with this with students. There are other activities that face more towards staff, but dealing first with the student facing activities. What we're trying to do is give students a sense of welcome, give students a sense of where their law degree can take them, and to try to break down the boundaries that many different sorts of students feel. Whether these are students who come from, whether these are white students who come from a traditionally working class part of Scotland, and who feel inhibited and who feel that they're somehow going to go, that they can't, either they can't go to university, or if they do go to university, they can't do a degree like law, or if they do a degree like law, they'll never have a successful career. Try to break down these barriers, and to provide stories and narratives of encouragement to show, look, these are other people who have come on this same sort of journey and are doing the same as you. We've done that also for students who come from a black and Asian background, with alumni coming in and telling stories about their successful journey, telling students about how they have managed to go from a position of self-doubt where they never thought that they were going to be able to complete this degree, far less have a successful career, to being in senior positions in major law firms. And we've also continued to focus on trying to inspire female students by having a blog series of Women in the Law, where women share their successes. So we've had fireside chats with Lady Wise. Margaret Ross provided us with the inaugural Women in the Law series blog. Lady Wise has participated, so too Lady Dorian, and this is an open series. We'll be continuing. We'll be continuing with these going forward. So important, I think, to inspire our students and to give them a sense of opportunity that's out there. And again, if anyone wants to volunteer to assist in that in any way, I'll be absolutely delighted to speak to them. Another major plank of the university's 2040 strategy is this notion of interdisciplinarity. There is a strong sense, I think, within the sector that that interdisciplinarity is of huge importance. I think we in Aberdeen are particularly well placed to engage in interdisciplinary activities for a number of reasons, and really rich interdisciplinary activities for a number of reasons. Firstly, the 2040 plan encourages it. We now have 5 interdisciplinary research centres that have been set up. The directors have been appointed into those centres, and resource is now really going in there, so that there are research associates being employed in there to really try to bring the different parts of the universities who are unified by these particular themes, to try to bring them together to work in a collegiate way. So the themes that the law school at the moment is most engaged with is the theme of energy transition, and the theme of wellness, perhaps surprisingly. Because what we've started to do is build quite strong relations, quite strong links with the medical school. As you may know, this might not sound terribly interesting, but it's a good example, I think, of how structural change can actually make quite a big difference, and quite a positive difference, maybe even in quite unexpected ways. When I was a student, there was a faculty of law with departments. That then became a school sitting within the College of Arts and Social Sciences. So that was the kind of the structure that has existed throughout most of my time as an employee here. But over the last few years, what we now have is really quite a flat management structure, where we've got the principal, the senior vice principal, and then all of the heads of school report directly into the senior vice principal. So in other words, no college structure. And what that's led to is quite an interesting situation, where the heads of school talk to each other a lot, meet a lot, constantly explore areas of mutual interest, and this has led to law, to some extent, breaking out of a slightly siloed approach with the college. there were benefits to the college structure, but one of the downsides of it was that it was a little difficult to do interdisciplinary work outside of one's college. A lot of the interdisciplinary work that we're doing in law now is not with the group of schools that would have been our sister schools in the College of Arts and Social Sciences. We're doing an awful lot with the physical sciences and with medicine. So we run interdisciplinary courses with engineering and with geosciences. We're currently involved trying to get grant funding to facilitate a programme that might potentially lead to a change in law around medical ethics. And a great deal of our work in the interdisciplinary space relates to energy, where the law school's Centre for Energy Law is playing a very active role in the Centre for Energy Transition. And we're also working with the National Decommissioning Centre too. We want to do more interdisciplinary work. Our appetite for that is huge. We see that as a means of fulfilling this desire to do impactful research, research that really helps drive society forward. We see it as a means of gaining access to more in the way of funded research, which again is a pathway to impact, but also a way of diversifying our income streams away from the student base. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what we're doing as a school. But just to kind of summarise and go back over it, we are, when it comes to teaching, continuing to develop new master's programs, responding to the market, trying not just to push out what old lags like me might be interested in, but actively recruiting colleagues who are going to be able to diversify our offerings and really speak to the students, open up new markets. And on the research side, it's fundamentally about trying to make a positive difference in society. And I think law is well placed to do that, because as I frequently say, both to students and to colleagues inside and outside the law school, law is kind of everywhere. Law's, even if you're not in a court, in an environment where it's very obvious that law is in the foreground and you're talking about the law is lurking in the background. It's either obstructing or oiling the wheels of commerce. It's potentially frustrating interesting societal advances if legal regulation is too prohibitive and is getting in the way. There's a discussion to be had there about relaxing the law, but there are also discussions to be had about bringing law in to safely regulate various sort of aspects of our increasingly complex lives. So one of the things that I find really fascinating, a challenge that I quite enjoy, is when dealing with colleagues who say, well, I've got this research project, so maybe a colleague in physical sciences, I've got this research project, there's no space for the law here. And then within kind of a 5 or 6 minute discussion, you manage to persuade them that they need a lawyer somewhere on that interdisciplinary bed in order to really put it through the best advantage. Okay, that's all that I really wanted to say by way of introduction, but have there been questions coming in, Fiona?
Yes, I have. Thanks so much for that, Greg. That was really interesting to hear that update. Sorry to all of you who probably can't actually see me on your screens. I've had some technical difficulties, as is the joy with these things. So my camera is not actually working, but hopefully you can all hear me clearly. The first question we've got, Greg, is from Helena, who's joining us from Germany. So she's asked, when speaking about diversity, have you noticed a shift or decrease of students coming from the EU after Brexit, not breakfast?
breakfast is important, Brexit perhaps even more so. Yes, we have noticed that. We have noticed a shift. It's been less pronounced in the law school than some other parts of the university, because there were some parts of the university where very high proportions of the student body came from Europe. But yes, we have noticed a shift. There has been a decrease in students coming from Europe. There are still some coming, but they have to pay significant fees as international students now, and there is no denying that it's had an effect, and it's something that I regret, because I was pleasantly surprised when I first came in when I first moved from practice into working in academia. I was pleasantly surprised at how diverse an environment I kind of walked into. Especially at undergraduate level, I had expected to be, teaching primarily students from the UK, and I found myself, teaching, really quite a broad range of students. Yes, from the UK, but also ones from all over the world. But a significant chunk of them, I think in some years as many as 30 or 40, coming from continental Europe, and that some of that diversity has been lost, sadly.
Thank you. Another one we've got is, what would be the #1 thing that you would want to achieve in the next academic year as head of school?
There's various things I want to achieve. Some of them will not be achieved within 1 year. I'd like to see some investment in the built environment. I think we've done really well in getting our number of staff up, but we need to get our facilities improved. But that's apart from some fairly marginal things, that's unlikely to happen within the space of a year. What I would really like to see is space law up and running and successful, because at the moment it feels like something I've taken a bit of a punt on, and I want to see the evidence, which I'll only really get when I see some student numbers come through. I want to see the evidence that I've got this right, because not an awful lot of places in the UK are doing this yet. There are some well-established centres in Europe, so there isn't. Marketing wouldn't necessarily tell you to do this, but it's an opportunity that I perceive. So I suppose that's what I would like to see. I would really like to see that hunch was right, and to actually start to really develop a space law centre in Aberdeen.
Thank you. Just to say, if anyone does want to post questions, if you want to just type them in the chat. The next question we've got is, what is the law school doing to broaden its partnerships and connections with industry, and with the university's focus on internationalisation, what is the school doing in this area?
I'll take the internationalisation bit first. I've got discussions later this week with an American law school who are looking in first instance for a summer school. As some of you will know, we already have a summer school with the universities of Baltimore and Maryland. My hope is that this new potential exchange with an American school, I won't mention yet because we're at a reasonably early stage of discussions, but my hope is that this will move into a broader exchange there. We've done quite a lot of work at the level of postgraduate research with a number of institutions in Southeast Asia. Quite a lot of that was being done just at the point when COVID bit, so it hasn't really paid off quite in the way that we had hoped it would. But the hope is that we will be able to offer dual degree PhDs with those institutions where their students study there, but also then transfer to Aberdeen, and across maybe a 4-year period manage to attain 2 degrees. So there's work ongoing there. There's also work ongoing for 2+2 arrangements with other institutions in China. It's probably fair to say that quite a lot of our partnering work has slowed down a bit because of COVID, but there's a real thirst to take that forward. More locally, we're renewing our long-standing visiting arrangement with the University of Bergen, who have been great partners over the years, and we're looking at other institutions. We're looking at institutions in France that we can potentially partner with for joint master's degrees there as well. So there's quite a lot of activity, but it's not necessarily all at the stage of paying off just yet, but there are quite a lot of irons in the fire. So far as industry is concerned, I think the short answer is that we probably haven't reached out as much to industry, or indeed the legal profession, quite as much as we should have done. I have recently appointed a member of staff, Alistair McPherson, to be in charge of a new entrepreneurship and employment committee, and he and I have got some meetings in the diary to get out and start talking. To be honest, in first instance, I'm mainly using my own kind of contacts book, so quite a lot of it's energy focused at the moment, because that happens to be the area that I worked in practice and work in as an academic. But we want to step out from that into other areas, into the financial sector, and other areas too. We're trying to ensure that our curriculum matches what practitioners need, but also really gives our students the best possible opportunities to get good jobs in industry. So there is more work to do there, but we've started, and if anybody wants to engage with us, I'll be very happy to put you in touch with Alistair, because he's the correct point of contact for that sort of thing now.
Sounds like there's lots going on. The next question is, it's great to hear that investments have been made to hire more staff. In light of the pandemic or post-pandemic, will that have any impact or change on the way that courses are being offered? Will there perhaps be a bigger online offering?
Well, it was our intention to diversify our online offering anyway, even before COVID came on. And funnily enough, COVID actually slowed that down, because I felt we didn't actually have the staff to divert away from core activities. Just with core activities becoming more complex, I didn't really feel that we were able to take that forward quite as quickly as I would have wanted to. It's likely that we will have an online master's degree in energy law, probably entitled Energy Transition, within the next 12 months or so. We're at quite advanced stages for that plans. And I would like to see, it's at a slightly earlier stage, I would like to see a commercial law master's available online too, before too long. At the moment, we've got dispute resolution, oil and gas law, and international trade. So I think we need to fill this out and step it out. We've had quite a lot of success with short courses aimed specifically towards the oil and gas industry. Many of them interdisciplinary in nature. And they've been delivered online too. So that's been quite a successful market for us. So yes, you can expect to see more online activity in the not too distant future.
Thank you. The next question is, the increase in student satisfaction in the rankings is really impressive. What do you think were the main contributing factors to that?
A few different factors there. One was, I think, really just lots of liaison and engagement with the students during the COVID period. I think something that came through both in that survey and other sources of feedback that we got was that although students found the COVID period difficult and unsettling, which is completely understandable, they felt that we went to a lot of effort to communicate to them. They felt that we put a lot of effort into the online teaching that we gave them. And there's perhaps a certain element of luck in this too, in that in Aberdeen, there were periods of time when we were able to do more on-campus teaching than was possible in some other parts of the country, because they went into tier 3 or tier 4 restrictions while we remained at tier 2. Our large, our lecture type activity remained online throughout, but there were points when we were able to give a little bit more face-to-face teaching. I don't think that was the main factor, though. I think what really came through most was the sense of care and the sense of engagement with the students. And that was something that we put a lot of effort into, and it was really pleasing to see the students appreciate that.
Thank you. There's no more questions in the chat just now. Does anyone else want to ask a question? I'll maybe ask one in the meantime, if that's okay. You mentioned a bit about how alumni can help the school. Are there any other things that that alumni could be doing to help?
Well, there's the well-established mentoring scheme, which isn't really run through the law school; it's run through the careers service. But that's been a long-standing way for alumni to help, and I know students really get an enormous amount of value out of that. So if that's something that alumni are interested in contributing to, that's a really valuable thing. More generally, I think I really just want alumni, if they feel they've got some sort of contribution they can make, to reach out, to get in contact either with myself or yourself, Fiona, because I want to have a richer discussion with alumni than we've had. I think during the COVID period, we've perhaps had a little bit of an excuse for this because it's been tough, and the workloads have been really quite crushing, frankly, and we've ended up kind of focusing on that core activity of looking after the students. But as we come out of that, I really want to make sure that we are equipping the students for the challenges that they face as they go into the workplace. So what I want is a really rich discussion with alumni about how we do that. Are there substantive areas of law that we're not teaching that we should be teaching? Because, if that can be demonstrated, we will invest in it. Are there skills that our graduates are missing when they come out? I think we probably teach more legal skills in the undergrad now than we ever have before. There's more of a focus on things like negotiation and drafting and so on than before. But there may still be room for improvement. And really, if anybody wants to engage with us, if they think they've got expertise that they could kind of bring in and really share with our students, we'd just be delighted to hear about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I echo that. Would be so delighted to hear from anyone that would like to help. We haven't had any more questions in the chat box, so I'll maybe pass over to Katrina. Oh, sorry, that's my dog whining now.
Always nice to have a canine contributor. Thank you so much, Greg, for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it, especially since we know it's been an incredibly busy day for all of our heads of school with the release of the REF results. So we really do appreciate you taking the time. And of course, to our alumni who have joined us today, thank you for joining and for your questions. If any burning questions occur to you after the fact, it's absolutely fine. Just drop us an email, alumni@abdn.ac.uk, and we'll be very happy to follow up on those for you. So without further ado, I think we'll bring the session to a close. Thank you again. Take care, everyone, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.